What's up people, my name is Potato Noir and I'm here with a brand new, original, early game mob farm design. If you just want to skip to the tutorial and not understand why this farm is so awesome, jump to the time shown on the screen. This farm works by utilizing the 128 block spawn sphere to your advantage. This farm is dug flat into the dirt so that it is quick to dig out and also doesn't require you to place any blocks besides the tower to AFK. As you can see, all the light on these levels is 0, and the mobs will be spawned and flushed into this water collection system, where they will be flushed down into this trap, which only requires 6 soul campfires as one of the quickest ways to kill mobs, because we can't kill them by fall damage, because as you can see, the despawn sphere is exactly aligned to where this is the very bottom of where the mobs can be. Instead of utilizing expensive observers, this farm uses trapdoors powered by redstone for simplistic and easy mob flushing in a flat and quite big mob spawning area. And over here we have a pretty universal repeater clock that also uses one comparator. So as you can see down here in the killing chamber, we have actually walls and slabs right above them. And what this does is this creates a little lip for the hitbox of spiders whenever they fall down to where they can't climb back up and get in the way of other mobs and or not be killed very quickly by the soul campfires. And as I mentioned, the most wonderful part about this farm is that it's dug almost entirely out of dirt. So if you have any kind of high-tiered shovel or really just a shovel in general, this farm will be much more fast to make. So I think it's personally a lot easier to just dig out this area and place a little bit of redstone than it is to make a giant vertical contraption in the sky and then try and AFK above even that and getting up there. So I think this farm is much more friendly for the early game. A few of the design quirks I'll point out to you real quick. This area in the middle is not actually to flush the mobs, it's to block the light of these soul campfires, because if you don't have this here, some of the platforms right here will have lighting and will not be able to spawn mobs. That is why this platform is in the middle in this kind of weird configuration like this. And down here we have the easy collection system. This literally only takes 8 hoppers and 3 double chests. You can expand it down more if you'd like, but I found that this configuration is good for most players. One more note about this, you don't actually have to use scaffolding for this. You can use a normal line of 80 materials. You can use it out of the dirt that you get from digging this farm out. So you don't technically need any building blocks whenever you start this farm. You don't have to make this out of glass. If you don't want to, you can make it out of dirt. It doesn't even have to be lit up. It just has to have 1 block above you to stop phantoms from spawning. If you like, you can place a water bucket down below. Just make sure it doesn't remove any of the torches for the despawning on the surface right here. And as you can see, the despawn sphere actually intersects the ground and a little bit of area around the tower. So be careful to spawn out in about this radius. And the radius on this flat circle right here is around 55 blocks or so. So if you spawn out in around a 55 block circle, you shouldn't be getting any mob spawns on the surface. One thing to note, you might have to spawn proof a few caves like this one right here. I would strongly recommend checking for caves really close to this farm. As you can see, it's pretty shallow where this despawn sphere intersects, so you won't have to do very much spawn proofing underground, which is what the purpose of building this farm very flat. I tried to build it as flat as I possibly could. And as you see, there's a lot of mobs coming through here. And finally, I want to talk about a few of the ways that you can make this farm much more efficient. So if you're willing to take the time, you can go ahead and build another layer exactly like the first one, just directly above where the first layer is. You can do this exactly the same way as you made the first layer, except for instead of digging, you're going to be placing the blocks on the outside of where the area will be on the inside. So you make it exactly the same shape directly above with a trench in the middle where the mobs will fall down. Just imagine for that second layer, it would go directly above this, using the top floor of the ground as the bottom layer of that layer. Another thing that you can do is you can put another extra layer of hoppers on the outside of this ring right here. Every now and then, very rarely, an item will drop exactly between the wall and the campfires. You can add that if you like, it's not really necessary. Lastly, one of the last things that you can do to improve the efficiency is you can make this trench 3 wide instead of 2. What that would do is give a little bit more room so that maybe a spider or 2 doesn't climb on the walls like they very rarely sometimes do. And before I get any grief about it in the comment section, yes, occasionally a spider can sit right exactly here. This won't really affect the rates of the farm too much because what will happen is the spider will despawn pretty quickly. and it's not usually a problem. The spider usually despawns after a minute or so it doesn't really affect the rates of the farm too much in my experience. But if you make this trench 3 wide, that'll happen less often and mobs won't get kind of bunched up a little bit around here and they can pass through a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and talk about the rates for this farm. This farm produces about 2,200 items per hour, and you can see what that looks like in a chest right here to my left. All in all, I think this farm strikes a really good balance of easy to build and also outputting very well. But you're probably wondering, how does it compare to the popular mod farms you've seen, like these, for example? There's tons of designs out there. Well, for that, we have to compare 4 different metrics: drops per hour, the resources required, build time after gathering these resources, and what I'm calling the efficiency value, but we'll talk more about this later. Let's compare my farm with the most popular farms you see here. First, we're going to go back in time for the old school mob farm. This farm was, as far as I can tell, uploaded originally by mtandy back in 2013, and it still gets reposted all the time. These videos that are posting tutorials of an old farm consistently get millions of views, pretty much none of which link the original or the original channel, because there are a bunch of unoriginal scammers in it for the money. So this classic farm produces around 908 drops per hour in my testing, but an important fact to note is that it does not drop string. It uses these resources here and takes around 45 minutes to build for an experienced player or so. It has the lowest efficiency value of 2.03, which I'm defining as the drops per hour over the number of spawnable blocks in the farm. This gives us a decent idea of how quickly the farm can kill mobs with the spawnable block area it has, so the higher the number the better. Second, an even more popular farm nowadays, the dispenser farm. This one I'm showing is a tutorial by Shulkercraft, with no credit to any design in the description. Despite the same exact idea being created by Gimbon 5 years ago, and now there's a ton of other copycat YouTuber posts. So this farm produces the most drops per hour, which is around 6,538. But that comes at a cost of a massive materials list and a really long survival build time. I've estimated this at 2 or 3 hours, but I feel like it definitely took me longer in the early game whenever I built this farm. But it does have the greatest efficiency value of 5.83, the credit of which goes to Gimbon. So how does my farm compare to these? Well, I built it in survival to find out. My farm gets a reasonable amount of drops, around 2,224 per hour including string, uses by far the least materials that are more accessible, has the shortest build time of around 37 minutes, which was done in survival with all iron tools, not even diamond, not even efficiency or anything. So you literally could have that time if you did have diamond shovels or efficiency, because it would take so much less time to build, because more than half of my time was just digging out the dirt. It has an efficiency value which is pretty high of 5.30, which is pretty darn good for so little building time, I think. But you can also spend an extra 10 minutes of building and double the rates with another layer above the first. You just need a little bit more redstone. Alright, now that you know all about the farm, let's go ahead and jump into the tutorial so I can show you how to build it. First, you want to find a nice flat area that's at the lowest Y level as possible. The farm will wind up having a roughly rectangular shape, so keep that in mind as you build. Go ahead and dig down 3 blocks. Now you're going to want to dig exactly 15 blocks to either side, and this is going to be a 2x2 tunnel. It doesn't matter which side of it your initial hole is on. You can see the dimensions for that here. Next, you're going to go to any corner of the farm and dig exactly 8 blocks in on the bottom layer and 1 extra block on the top layer. Then you're going to finish digging out all of this corner of the layer except for the very center blocks right where you dug your initial hole. Go ahead and extend the top layer out as well. Then you're going to go ahead and repeat this pattern on all 4 corners, making sure to leave the blocks in the center. What I did to keep some light in here so that stuff wouldn't spawn was I made a few holes into the ceiling so that sunlight would come through and no monsters would be spawning while I was doing this. Now in the very center 2 blocks of the farm, you're going to go ahead and dig down 2 blocks and dig forward in this pattern shown here. Everything you dig here will be 2 blocks wide. Don't worry about the center part yet. Go ahead and mirror everything you just did on the other side and then start to connect it with the middle as shown here. You're going to leave a floating 2x5 layer in the middle that's centered exactly at the farm. Also put some signs here. Now go ahead and put water buckets on the very outer layer. It should flow to the center and leave a 2x3 gap in the middle. Next, on this upper 2x5 layer, you're going to put a water bucket on the outside of each corner of this middle section here. This water placement makes sure that no mobs will ever get stuck in the middle of the farm. Now go to the edge of the farm. In the middle 2 blocks, dig a little ways in. We'll revisit this later. On the very inside edge of the farm, go ahead and dig out just as far as is on the outside, and then place the end like this. You're going to want to go ahead and do this for both sides. Now go ahead and return to the inside of the farm. Making sure to face outward, you're going to place a row of trapdoors on each quarter of the farm. This is so that the water will be held in by them whenever they're flipped up. You'll see what that looks like here in a second when we put the water in. Using 2 blocks of water, you can make an infinite source and go ahead and flip up all those trapdoors and place water along the rest of the lines. And you'll go ahead and repeat this for each of the 4 corners. Don't mind the temporary blocks in the middle, they're just for me to get across on each side of the farm. Once you're done with that, go ahead and place redstone and repeaters in the configuration shown here. This one won't be powered for you yet, don't worry about it, we'll get to that later. Go ahead and repeat this on all 4 sides of the farm. Bear in mind that the repeaters should face the end of the farm that's a dead end and not the side that you've dug out. Also, they won't have any delay. Connected to this line on the other side of the thin wall, you should place a repeater and redstone as shown here. Link it via dust to the other side and use a torch to invert the signal like this. This will make either side of the farm on opposite phases. Now, directly in the 2 center blocks of the farm, you want to add a loop of 14 total repeaters on full delay. This means that each half is facing opposite directions. Add a redstone dust and a comparator facing into the repeaters, and then add this dust on the edge like this. Right-click the comparator to put it in subtract mode, and then make 1 more redstone dust up that can be powered by a lever from the top. This will be the on-off switch for the farm. When the lever's on, the mob flushing system in the middle of the farm should be working properly like this. In my testing, this configuration was slightly more efficient. If you have any spawnable blocks, you can put a torch to go ahead and prevent mobs from spawning back there, and then block that hole up. And then remove any temporary blocks that help you get around. Go down to the 2x3 hole in the center and dig down exactly 2 blocks. You're going to want to dig on the outside in this shape here. It'll wind up being 4 blocks by 5 blocks on this level. Remember to take any temporary torches out later like this one here. Now you're going to want to go ahead and dig down 1 more layer, leaving the corner blocks, and use all the stone to craft cobble slabs that you place on the underside here. Now craft a few cobble walls and place them in between those blocks. Now dig the whole square down 2 more blocks to get room to place the campfires on the top. The bottom of the campfires should be even with the bottom of the walls. Next, you're going to want to dig the floor out 1 more layer and push the wall out by 2 or 3 blocks. When you place the first double chest down, you'll have to break the block above it so that it will open, but then it'll be fine. Place the chest down like this, and then place all the hoppers connecting into the center as shown here. In case it's hard to see, here are the dimensions for this room. The ladder tunnel is just a little manhole up to the surface with a ladder. This will allow easy access down to the collection system. Now remove all temporary torches from inside and close up all of these light holes so that stuff can start spawning. Now find the very center of the farm, and in either one of these 2 blocks, go ahead and pillar up exactly 118 blocks from the surface level. You can use scaffolding if you have it here, or you can use ladders if you don't. You could also place a water bucket at the bottom to get down quick. At the very top of the farm, you just need a torch and 1 block over your head to prevent phantoms from spawning. Don't ask me why my ladders are broken. I have no idea. Now when you're up at the top, the area that mobs can spawn in is represented by this sphere here. You're going to want to spawn-proof all the ground where the sphere intersects so that no mobs will spawn on top of the ground at night here. I use just around 2 stacks of torches to do this, but your mileage may vary. Just make sure that there's no light level 0 blocks in this area. These numbers represent the light levels of these blocks, make sure that none of them are 0. You can also find the light level using F3, and also make sure that you check for any shallow caves near the farm. So the radius that you'll have to spawn out in is about 55 blocks if it's flat, though it may be a little bit more if there's elevation. If you're still here, thanks so much for watching, and let me know what you like about the farm in the comments. If you like this, then stop by my channel and I'll see you in the next video.